It's well known that handwriting helps us learn better than simply transcribing or typing what we hear. Recent studies have also shown that drawing is an even more powerful way of helping us retain new information. What if we can combine both? Hi, I'm Shane, and welcome to this channel where I share tips, strategy, and lessons that bring us closer to the best versions of ourselves. And learning is a big part of that. Today, I'm going to show you how I sprint up learning curves by mind mapping lectures, podcasts, and documentaries. This method is so powerful because it forces us not only to handwrite our notes, but also arrange them in a way that makes sense for us, thereby making additional connections that help both our understanding of new material and encoding them into our memory for better recall. When you're mind mapping a talk, you're essentially engaging in three different neural functions. The first one is semantic processing, which is elaborating on the meaning of what you're learning, and it's related to how we learn language. Number two is kinesthetic or motor processing, which is the act of actually drawing out something, and it's related to the way that we learn stuff like sports or the way that we move our bodies. The third one is pictorial processing, which is visually arranging new information in a way that fits the map you're creating, as well as making the connections between new concepts. This is also related to how we visually remember things. Since at the neural level, the strength of a memory depends on its connections to other memories, an isolated piece of information like a random fact is easily forgotten, while a richly triple encoded memory or information that is semantically, kinesthetically, as well as visually or pictorially encoded not only resists being forgotten, but also in my own experience has contributed to formation of new insights or connecting those dots together into that aha moments. This whole process is very active and is guaranteed to make you more engaged and less distracted when you're absorbing new content. Before we begin this tutorial though, I do want to give a few limitations about this technique. Mind mapping in general is really good for offloading short-term memory onto a different medium. So basically externalizing our thoughts, right? So this could be a piece of paper, an app or program that you're using to map out everything that you're thinking about or absorbing, which also means that it's really suitable for things between 30 minutes to, or content between 30 minutes to 3 hours or so, right? Which is roughly the time span of a long podcast or lecture. Mainly because what I found is that past that point, the maps tend to get really big and complicated if there's a lot of information. This is why I don't mind map out entire books. There's just way too much content in there. However, I have mind mapped important concepts of books or individual chapters or multiple chapters. All right, guys, without further ado, let's jump into the tutorial. And for today's video, I'm going to use an interview from Gary Vee on Mark Zuckerberg on the metaverse and Web3. So pretty interesting topics from very interesting people. So before we start, guys, I do want to give the 5 steps that I take towards making any mind map. I'm using Notability on the iPad Pro, by the way, in case you're wondering. So title, right? This is going to be your central, the center of your mind map. The second step is to capture the sequence or try to capture the sequence in the surrounding nodes or the main nodes that's at the center of your mind map. So for example, this is going to be topic 1, topic 2, right? And from a lecture standpoint, this might actually come from like lecture notes or chapters, what have you. But if it's a podcast, then it could be, for example, question 1 or concept 1. And often a lot of podcasts are interviews, which makes it really easy. You can just like start with a particular question. So the third step is to create another major node for known or common categories. So for example, if you're listening to a podcast of, or even a speaker panel of sorts, you would have, for example, people, right? And then you can have like, interviewer, guest, and then you can make, notes about their background. All right. And then there are other categories that I like to put, for example, let's say themes, right? These are common themes that might reoccur and you just want to note them later. Maybe it's processes, lessons, life lessons or something, right? If that's what your podcast is about. The fourth step is to draw arrows and connections for processes. So for example, if there are certain things between, let's say, themes and lessons, I can make that connection there. Or if there are processes between, lessons learned or something, it could be there, or topics that's related to the processes, you could do that. The fifth step is to annotate with different colors or different symbols to denote, for key points. So for example, I would use stars for key points, exclamation marks for things I want to go back and review, question marks for obviously for questions, right? It just makes the mind map a lot easier to read and understand, right? So for example, it could be, let's say, lesson 1, right? And then theme, there could be a particular theme that I want to go back to or process. Then I would use a different color pen if you're doing it on paper, for example. This could be a highlight that I want to revisit. This is something perhaps I want to review. And then this is a question mark that I want to have more questions about this particular process. The other thing is that if I want to prioritize certain things, I can add a number across here too. And zooming out a little bit, you can see that this makes the map a lot easier to read because your eyes naturally gravitate towards the red ink as well as the symbols. And I think we're ready to go. Let's take a look at here. Before I even press start, I'm already just making that first couple notes. So for example, I'll say Web3/Metaverse Zuck interview. So that's the central node. That's the first one. And I know there are a few folks on this call. So basically the people is gonna be Gary Vee and Mark Zuckerberg. Obviously, these people are pretty well known, but if you didn't know them before, you would go like, okay, well, CEO of Facebook and Meta. This guy is like the OG influencer. And I'm gonna make another one for themes, right? Just in case when themes do come up, I'm already got a central or a main node that is ready to go to put those themes down. I think that's pretty good to start off with actually, because once Gary Vee starts making or asking Mark the questions, then each of those can actually be its own node. All right, let's hit it.
So Mark, I think what's really funny in the meta, pun intended, it's NFT NYC right now. And I was saying to AJ, Kevin Rose, I'm
gonna pause here for a second. Already there are, because I'm not familiar with the Web3 or NFT space, I come more from the metaverse space given I've worked in AR for a very long time. There are gonna be another node that I wanna make for questions, right? Questions or even like, key terms, for example. So for example, NFT. So if I was completely new to this whole field, I would ask, what is an NFT? And that's going to be a question. All right, let's get back to it.
What is your just kind of macro thesis of the Web3 place we're going? Whether it's the metaverse, the NFT stuff, like what are we on the precipice of and how similar is it to the time where right before Facebook was launched?
I'm going to pause for a second because Gary just asked his first question and I'm realizing I don't even have enough room in my mind map. And this is something that you want to watch out for, especially when you're mind mapping on a notebook, right? Because you won't be able to shrink this as flexibly as if I were to do it on an app. So in fact, I'm just gonna go onto a new page here in Notability and put it there and just start shrinking it. Now I get a lot more room. I can be a lot more liberal with the way that I draw my mind maps. Let's rewind that first question one more time.
Web3 place we're going, whether it's the metaverse, the NFT stuff, like what are we on the precipice of, and how similar is it to the time where right before Facebook was launched?
All right, so basically Gary has asked the question of, what's Mark's thesis about this whole Web3 and Meta, where it's all going, and how does it compare to Web 2.0 when Facebook first launched? So basically we're gonna go, all right, thesis. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. This is actually enough of a major theme that I'm not even gonna put it on a major themes. It's gonna be its own major node right here.
The metaverse to me today feels like the next frontier in social connection, in much the same way that social networking did when I was getting started back in 2004. And that's a big reason why we wanted to change the brand of the company, is that today I think most people think about us as a social media company. But in our DNA, we're a technology company that builds all kinds of different technology to help people connect and tries to advance human connection. And
all right, so already a few things, right? The metaverse is a huge part of the thesis. He's describing what the metaverse verse even entails. Already a few keywords are coming out, which is presence. This is something that is going to be really key, and actually one of the main value adds about VR, for example, is that you can actually be, have that sense of presence with another person without them actually being in the same room, for example.
But I think some of the experiences are starting to come together too. So, we've started to release Horizon and workrooms and.
All right. So another one, I'm actually going to put this under themes because this is going to probably jump around, which is experiences. Experiences is important, especially in the AR, VR world, primarily because we don't really call them so much as apps, more so experiences, right? So this might actually be a new term, perhaps, of experiences if you're not familiar with it. So for example, this could be actually under new terms. We got an arrow right there already. Cool. All right, and then what kind of experiences? Well, we've got play, and we've got work, and he's gonna go on to other stuff.
And some of these experiences where you can feel like you're present with someone in a place, it's just pretty crazy to see how that's taking off. And it's not just game.
All right, so important thing about these experiences is that there needs to be presence with these experiences. Otherwise, for example, you might as well just play like Call of Duty with your friend or something, right? Just a regular multiplayer game. But really, it's the presence that really differentiates these metaverse type of experiences.
We spend most of our days building social apps that you use on a little phone, right? And as powerful as that is, you have your phone with you all the time. It's also pretty limiting, right? You're not delivering an experience where you can really feel like you're with another person. And in a lot of ways, that's sort of the ultimate dream of building these digital social experiences, is actually being able to make it so that people can feel like they're there together and doing something together and kind of collaborating. And just no technology that we have today can deliver that.
All right, I'm gonna stop a little bit here, mainly because he's really elaborating on the importance of presence, right? Which is, at the end of the day, it's a very social thing. Especially during the pandemic, we really realized the importance of being with other people, right? That's why online experiences has really taken off. If anything, there's been a social deficit of sorts over the last 2 years that really highlighted the importance of that. So I'm actually going to just circle social, in fact, and I'm going to bring it, I'm gonna draw a whole arrow to presence because I think I hypothesize this is going to be an important part of the discussion.
When I started the company, it was people primarily, the internet was primarily about text, right? So people type text into a computer. Then we got phones.
All right, so now he's describing kind of the evolution of communication. We've got a couple steps. So I'm gonna say evolution of comms, right? So we got text, and then we've got photos.
Internet connections have gotten a lot better for everyone. So now video is really the primary way that we share experiences. So you have this progression from text to photos to videos. Connection and expressing ourselves keeps on getting more natural.
Now he's talking about what's after video, right? What is after TikTok, Instagram, and all these other things. And with that, you know, we have internet broadband, internet speed has gone up, and therefore has led to self-expression has gone up as well.
That's not the end of the line, right? There's going to be something after video, and it's going to be much more immersive.
Just now he mentioned immersive. This might be an interesting term that we want to revisit as well. The fact that he actually repeated it twice tells me that this is probably important and might be related to presence. Who knows, right? What does even immersive mean? Especially if I'm coming into the metaverse, let's say blind, again, you know, completely new to this particular field, I'm going to be paying attention to every single vocab or jargon that these guys are throwing around.
That we can do throughout the day. So you'll have virtual reality for when you want to go into a really immersive zone. You'll have augmented reality to have holograms. You know, so you can imagine a version of this conversation.
Interesting. Okay, so the terms AR and VR just got thrown around. So let's say, I don't know, I think this might be under platforms, maybe. Again, the way that you arrange certain information on this is pretty arbitrary. So just, again, you're using your own judgment. The fact that you're actively thinking about the organization, the information, is precisely why mind mapping is so important. The fact that I'm trying to figure out, man, where does AR and VR fit in this whole map? Let's see, maybe it's platforms, right? So I'm gonna say AR, VR, and he just mentioned some of the difference with that, which is VR seems to be more immersive, and something about AR, let's see.
That it is 3 to 5 years from now, that is like, that the tech between 5G, which was an important step, between some of the stuff you're doing and other people, other companies and entrepreneurs are doing. Do you think 3 to 5 is a solid guess? Is that optimistic?
Yeah,
like, so talk to me about it.
Actually, just a interesting kind of thing that occurred, right? Gary just mentioned 5G, which is often related with AR and VR because of the high bandwidth, which is also related to internet speed. Which means that here in Evolution Comms, we can actually put, let's say, a whole spectrum here of 5G. Let's say, you know, photos and videos especially was enabled with 4G. Photos was enabled with 3G, if you recall, kind of Evolution Mobile as well, right? And then finally 2G was with text. So already you see some very interesting trends occurring that is correlated or caused by our infrastructure upgrades.
So I think you want to break it down to, there's the virtual reality side and the augmented reality side.
Yep.
VR is...
Perfect. He's already going to break down of that, and we have a category, you know, basically something within our mind map that accounts for the difference between AR and VR. He's about to go into it.
Here, right? I think Quest was really the form factor that was necessary to make it mainstream. Quest 2, I think, was a meaningful step beyond that, and is kind of the first mainstream hit that we've had. So many millions.
You know, I don't know what you're allowed to share or not. So don't feel comfortable telling me you can't. Is there public? Like, I'm just trying to learn how much.
We don't have a public number yet, but it's
Got it.
But it is. You know, what I can say is it's many millions, and it's and.
So just now he said Quest 2 was, you know, made millions, as well as what it sounds like an order of magnitude, right? Basically multiple times, I'm just gonna say maybe 10x times volume. Rough number, extrapolation.
That caught my radar, that there was a lot more people paying for fitness apps in Quest than I had any clue of.
All right, so now we got VR, the Quest essentially, and now we have a new category of fitness that VR is really connected to. So let's go to, let's make that connection to fitness.
You can do boxing or dancing or different kinds of cardio. It's pretty awesome. So I think that'll go for a while and get extended a lot. So there are all these different use cases in VR. When you're talking about the fencing video, first you're inventing a completely new optical stack, right? So you're not just using normal screen. You need to design a projector and a set of waveguides, so that way you can have glasses that look normal.
All right, so now he's describing actually the technology behind AR. So if you're going into this blind, you've already learned a few new things, which is you need pass-through screens, Basically, it's not completely immersive or enclosed goggles like VR, but in order to do that, you also need a waveguide.
For augmented reality, if you're going to wear it throughout the day, it's just a lot more important that the form factor is like normal looking glasses, right? I mean, virtual reality.
Mark, do you think? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think? What if I swallowed a 5G pill?
What if you swallowed a 5G pill? Freaking love Gary Vee for that.
But AR glasses, I think we're going to start seeing things that look like, normal looking glasses, but that can project holograms into the world, within the next 5 years.
All right, just now he mentioned AR glasses being potentially available within the next 5 years or so, right?
Did Pokemon Go, going back 5 years, ironically, was that something you watched carefully? Because I was like, holy shit, this is now happening. People are pulling off on this highway, jumping into the woods to find a Pikachu.
I consider it to be more of a location-based game than an augmented reality game. The fact that that it shows that you kind of look at it through your camera, I think is somewhat incidental. I think the core mechanic is that you're going to a place.
All right, just now he said something about Pokemon Go and how that's not true AR. I don't know exactly where it fits on this whole map. Again, you don't have to be precise. I'm actually just going to draw a new one called random. Again, I don't know where it fits, right? But it is kind of cool to know what a definition of a true AR is. So let's say Pokemon Go. Location versus true AR.
I think you have, filters, face filters, different effects like that, like what you see in Instagram and Snapchat. I think that's a real thing. That's I think is real augmented reality.
I agree.
And certainly, I think that there's going to be a lot more opportunity there once you get to these real-looking glasses that can put holograms in the world. So the other issue on that is you need haptics, right? So that way, when your sword hits the hologram sword, you get a sense of feeling from that. So that's a whole interesting other area of research, and I'm not sure exactly where that will be by the middle of this decade, but that's another thing that we're working on because.
All right, just now, haptics sounds like it's related to presence. Right? So now we're actually just mapping out what contributes to presence, which is a sense of feel in addition to just essentially a sense of visually seeing somebody next to you.
I assume, because I think about when I do things, oftentimes it's more for my team internally than for the world. Like if they don't understand where I'm trying to take Vayner or my stuff, then I've got no shot. Was that a thought about this in a lot of ways of like, hey, I gotta make sure, because you're a massive company now, like is this like, I need to give everybody a North Star internally of like, look, no, this is what we're doing. It's not just refining the algo or a filter on Insta or something of that nature.
All right, so interesting. Gary Vee just asked a question about company, which is very different than anything that we've had so far. Dang. So let's actually make a new node called company. Let's just see if there's anything interesting that comes out of that.
Right, I mean, running a company is about setting prioritization and principles for where you want to go, and I do think that it's the case that a lot of times the most effective way to communicate to the organization a level of commitment to something is to go say it externally, right? Because now people know that you're serious. So we've been talking about this internally for many years, right? I mean, so we've been working on the
goals and priorities. Externally communicated is more powerful. Externally communicated equals powerful. Yep.
To the point where now in 2021 we're investing $10 billion, more than $10 billion in this. So it's
investment, $10 billion.
Meta has become the premier place that if you care about these problems, you want to go work on them. Right, so whether that's VR, we're building the best devices. AR, I think we're the furthest ahead in terms of actually building the consumer glass form factor and all the different research around that. You mentioned any of the other problems around that, whether it's haptics.
He basically mentioned that the $10 billion is basically a market signal in addition to the external component, which means that it's really important for Facebook hiring. Right, again. You need a lot of engineers and machine learning and computer vision scientists, as well as hardware engineers to be working on this optics, right? So which means that both of these contributes to hiring. So I'm actually going to make a connection here. Hiring signals, both that and both the external goals and priorities as well as the investment, right? Which means that it attracts talent.
The fact that you put out such a public commitment to this, you see as a recruiting vehicle to the best engineers in the game in this space?
Yeah, well, look, I just think that when you plant a flag and say that you're going to go do something.
I like that term, which is public commitment. I think Gary actually summed that up really well.
You know, having the willingness to just go say, hey, here's what I want to go build, I think certainly creates this self-selection dynamic where when you say, here's who I am and what I want to go do, then you get people who want to share that. And what I've found in my career is that it's better to not be timid about that, right? And to not pretend that you're something that you're not. I think you'll kind of get the right people to join your team. You'll get the right investors, you'll get the right partners, and I think that that's kind of how you move forward.
Right. So in addition to hiring, I think he also says partners, which is enormously important, especially since Facebook is a platform / ecosystem. They need developers, game designers, whatever, in order to build on it. So having both basically that public commitment attracts the talent, as well as attracts partners.
Specifically Instagram and WhatsApp, which I thought were really of the moment deals. You know, I don't know if the corporation acknowledges the attempt towards Snapchat. It was well talked about. I don't know the truth or not truth to it, but again, when I heard it, or when it was reported, I was like, there he is again. He's 100% right. He's on it again. Like, I'll be very honest. Every day when I saw Musical.ly way back, I'm like, Facebook's gonna make a play. Facebook's gonna make a play, right? Like, am I right that is a big tenor of how you guys have looked at the world? B, what's that about?
Gary asked some really good questions around M&A or mergers and acquisitions of IG, Instagram, and WhatsApp. He also brought up a competition question about TikTok, right? So while he's asking those, I'm thinking that these might actually be really good points. So I've made new notes under company, because I think that's related to the previous question of, with M&A and competition. So while he's expanding that, I can hopefully update the mind map accordingly too.
Helping to ramp up a network around that. And that I think is also a core competence. So, I don't know what would have happened with Instagram, if we hadn't bought it. I don't think it's guaranteed that it would have grown to be as big as it is.
Oh, interesting. So Mark basically just noted one of the core competencies of Facebook, which is scaling social applications, right? That's actually extremely important. So let's say core dynamics, social, Facebook, good at scaling. Because to his point, Instagram might not have reached its success if it did not plug into the Facebook ecosystem. WhatsApp is a different story because Facebook paid like $21 billion for that, literally for the network.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a key thing with this rebrand to Meta is it's not like now we're not focused on social media. I mean, that's going to be the bread and butter of what we do. That's the core thing. And our work to build the metaverse encompasses both building social experiences and building these future platforms like VR and AR. It's got
So another thing here, which is platforms and experiences, right? So there seems to be a clear differentiation between the two.
Because you want to be able to jump into the metaverse and a 3D experience from your Instagram feed, right? See your friend at a concert. We showed this as part of the keynote presentation. Just dive in and maybe be a hologram at the concert. But
Facebook is an over-the-top or OTT type of application or company, which means that they had no hand in the smartphone or device level type of manufacturers. Whereas here we've got AR glasses, right? Which they are literally developing. So this is very cool because then this positions Facebook as a potential Apple. And we know how much Samsung and Apple and Huawei and all these other device manufacturers gained from telcos moving to 3G, 4G, and all these applications built on top of. There's a lot of money to be made. And I think Facebook wants a piece of that in addition to controlling more of the ecosystem and that vertical integration.
I feel like there's a lot of things that I would love to build that we can't build because we're kind of constrained into this little rectangle and policies that some other companies set. So that's part of, for me, why I have so much passion about helping to bring about this next platform shift.
Right, so around AR glasses and devices in general, so basically designed around people, social, right? That is it, guys. All right, let's take a look at what happened here with this mind map, right? So this was about a 30-minute interview. So already we've got, platforms, thesis, questions, themes, people, etc., right? As well as company. We learned quite a bit of stuff. So there's a lot of things that is in this mind map. Again, you can kind of see where all the arrows are moving towards. We've got presence, which tells me that, this is an important theme to remember about the metaverse as well as what it enables, right? We learn about some of the other things, that social, that experiences are important as well as expanding. They didn't even talk at all about applications. I don't know if you noticed, because experiences have replaced as a vocabulary word or glossary word for applications in the metaverse. We also learned about the evolution of communication, which I drew kind of like a diagram with. Again, drawing helps a lot with understanding. So now I understand, hey, 2G to 5G, what does that look like? As well as the fact that Facebook wants to have more control over the whole kind of vertical integration of devices, platforms, software, and experiences. And at the end of the day, also users, right? I just realized also that the new, I'm not very familiar with NFTs, so maybe I need to focus on that. So I'm gonna put an exclamation mark again, right? And also NFTs, yeah, I already know NFTs, I don't know really much about. Company-wise, we learned that the public commitment attracts that talent and self-selection for both talent as well as partners. I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sense of the metaverse, honestly, if I were jumping into this brand new from this mind map. This is gonna help me really retain all of that information as well as navigate through what's important at a glance, right? Again, I like to shrink this sometimes so that so you guys can actually see it in one page. There we go. So I'm gonna put stars against the things that I think are pretty important to review. Let's see what else. This is probably important, as well as reviewing NFTs. What would be the next step if you're curious about learning this way, right? So for example, if I were working for a company and if I needed to do a quick or basically a deep dive into market research, these are the type of lectures or podcasts and interviews that I would dive into that would give me a general understanding of a particular field. If you're being tested on this or writing an essay about certain things, this is where you would pull out certain themes that you would then incorporate into your essay, your blog post, or what have you, right? So anyways, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you at the next mind mapping tutorial or whatever future video that's going to capture this. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.